Chapter 161 The Sweetest Voice. Boy was I glad to sense Tiny had managed to arrive on schedule. My biggest worry had been the big moron would get confused or lost somehow. You managed to find me okay, big guy? No. It was hard. What happened? Walls. You got stuck behind walls. Yes. How did get through? Punched them. I wonder how many walls the queen is going to have to replace. Thinking of the queen, I could only shake my head internally. Are humans in this world penalized on cunning or something? From the moment I captured her, she had demonstrated her dislike of monsters at almost every opportunity. To think that such a person would actually hold to an agreement with one. I hadn't believed it from the beginning. I mean, the queen can't be entirely blamed for being outwitted. How could she have known that I was not just an unusually intelligent monster but an actual human reborn? Of course I know about treacheries, betrayal, and have the unfair advantage of being able to understand human mannerisms or tone. It was simplicity itself to have the colony tunnel under the castle and poke about until we located the sweet wealth. Being the noble and upstanding ant that I am, I wanted to uphold my end of the deal as much as possible, so I went along and fought hard to restore the queen to her throne. To be honest, it would have been pretty embarrassing had the queen not actually turned on me at the end. At that point we had already connected the castle to several prepared dungeon tunnels and emptied out her supply, of course. Thankfully we managed to avoid that awkward scenario. Tiny and I are currently racing down a separate tunnel we had prepared that hadn't been connected to the dungeon itself, so we are blessedly unobstructed by monsters as we run. I collapsed the entrance behind us, so I doubt the humans will be able to locate us. They should be busy handling a flood of monsters right about now. Go ahead. The perfect crime, Anthony, you genius you. The best part of all. The sweet, gravelly tones of Gandalf that are still ringing in my ears. You have reached level 20, 1 skill point awarded. You have reached max level for your current evolution. Would you like to access the evolution menu? Monster Core has reached capacity for your current stage of evolution. Piercing Chomp has reached level 10, advancement available. Advanced Exoskeleton Defense has reached level 5. Pet Communication has reached level 2. Shattering Bite has reached level 4. By the bushy, bristling facial hair of the bearded one. So good. The notifications fell like rain in my ears during the final battle. Max level. Thanks to stealing the cores from all of the lamps, I have maxed out my core at 100 megapixels. If I can take in a special core, I'll be ready to evolve once more. My pow. It grows. Combined with this sack full of monster cores we swiped, the future is looking exceptionally bright. The skills I'll be able to train, the special evolutions I'll be able to secure for my pets and the colony. We really hit the jackpot this time. The unfortunate part is that we have to move the colony, quickly. The queen is perfectly aware of where we are presently situated, so we can't sit still. Only by relocating somewhere out of her reach will we be able to avoid retaliation. Thankfully such a place isn't too far away. To the south of these lands, the wild and untamed monster-infested lands are vast. It'll be easy for our colony to get lost in there, giving us plenty of time to develop and grow. The only tricky part is making sure we have some form of dungeon access, since the queen isn't able to sustain herself on the surface. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. If everything goes according to plan, then we will be able to build a kingdom of our own. Or antkind. Hold on there, Anthony. Don't get ahead of yourself. For the moment you still need to focus on fleeing the country. You are the fugitive. Even if I want to evolve really bad. It's addictive, evolving. Go to sleep and wake up as a better and more powerful you. There's an intoxicating quality to it. I must firm my will and resist. You can't evolve when you're dead. Tiny and I continue to run through our emergency escape route as I chuckle gleefully to myself the entire way. There is a very real danger of me becoming conceited if I continue to celebrate my own success so enthusiastically. When we finally burst out of the tunnel, we find ourselves once more beneath the shady foliage of the forest. I breathe deep of the fresh forest air. Delicious. Freedom. I stretch my legs wide to embrace the trees. This is the feeling of freedom, of liberty, of successful, guilt-free theft. Tiny looks at me as if I'm completely stupid. Pa. You don't have the intelligence to appreciate the subtle nuances of this moment. You don't even realize that with that sack over shoulder you look like a mutated, evil Santa. It takes another 20 minutes to make our way back to the anthill. Seeing the large dirt structure, with its ever-attentive guards, warms my heart. Home with the family once more. Time to uproot and move them all again. Skirting around the anthill, I make my way straight to the farm, leaving Tiny to rest after his long haul. He might have power, but stamina seems to be slight weakness of the big guy. Crawling down into the farm, I see a familiar sight. The workers have continued to build a living layer of armor around their beloved queen, essentially burying her beneath several layers of workers. Once again, I have to climb in and push my way through until the queen's face emerges from the clutter right in front of my face. Mother. Hello. Have you been able to heal yourself? I exclaim. The queen smiles, her antennae waving about until she manages to free one and give me a tap on my own, the ant high five. I am well, child. I have healed myself. How does your core feel? I ask. Flipping on my mana sense momentarily, I can see that once again her core is blazing with light. The density of mana in her core seems to have recovered to its maximum capacity. I feel fine, she responds. This is great news. The queen has made a full recovery. This means we can move immediately without endangering the most important individual in the colony. Hi. A voice calls. I look at the queen quizzically and she stares back at me calmly. Was that? Who was that? Where did you go, senior? You took so long. The voice comes again. The voice seemed somewhat high-pitched, squeaky almost. If it isn't the queen, then who the hell is talking to me in here? I turn around and cast about with my antennae until I finally come face to face with a small worker carrying a conspicuously large black lump on its back. Vibrant. I exclaim. Hi. She says, I learned to talk, senior. I have so many questions. Chapter 162, The Endless Nightmare. It's been 2 hours now and the little worker just won't stop. Why is your carapace so shiny? How'd you get so big? Can I do the magic-y stuff? Isn't talking fun? What are you doing? What are you doing now? Do you like eating? I think it's the best. Should we dig something? I love digging. And on and on. It turned out the little lump on her back was Chrysalis, who seemed delighted to grab hold of my antennae and migrate onto my back. She even quietly spoke up, saying welcome back, master, after she'd settled onto my carapace. So polite. Her voice was very soft and reserved, not at all like the image of the full-grown Jellymo I remember. All that effort I spent making her more intelligent seems to have paid off. It'll be nice to have a pet I can have a decent conversation with. Tiny is great at the whole silent companionship thing but isn't much for a detailed conversation. Only thing is the little pet seems extremely reticent. No matter how I prodded, I wasn't able to get any more words out of her. Maybe she's just shy. Vibrant, on the other hand. Apparently the bizarre hatchling doesn't seem to struggle with this public speaking. She won't shut up. As soon as she could, she climbed onto my head once again and practically danced with joy as she pelted me with endless questions, observations, and random statements. I can seriously feel a headache coming on. I tried my best to answer her at first, but my responses became shorter and shorter the longer the conversation went on. Eventually I just had to shout I need to talk to the queen. And started ignoring her for a moment. Anything for relief. The queen seemed slightly amused by my predicament. I can only imagine that the queen has been enduring Vibrant's endless thirst for conversation in my absence, seeing as she's the only other ant capable of talking back to the little thing. My esteem for the queen has risen to an even higher level. What saint-like patience. What incredible tolerance for her own children. Choking back my emotions, I speak to the queen. Mother, we need to move the colony once more. We aren't safe if we remain where we are. The humans will come again, and soon. Hearing of the creatures who killed so many members of the colony and wounded her, a faint anger can be felt from the queen. I know a place where we can go that they won't follow. The problem is that you'll have to move across the surface if we are going to escape quickly enough. Do you think you can? Mother seriously considers my question for a moment before nodding. I believe I will be able to sustain myself for some few days, she says. I will let you know when the feeling of weakness returns. That's great. Make sure you tell me, okay? If you keep it to yourself again, you really might get killed this time. I plead. The queen simply acknowledges my words with a wave of her antennae and begins to mobilize the workers to return to the surface. As she makes her own way to the enlarged opening they created for her to enter, the layer of workers around her just shuffles along, maintaining their defensive positions as she moves. Vibrant had managed to hold herself in whilst I was speaking to the queen, but as soon as she begins to move away, she pipes up again with her squeaky voice. Where are we going? To the south. We need to escape the humans. She immediately became enraged. Humans. I will die to protect the colony. Why did this immediately become about her dying? You don't need to die or anything, we just need to move. If we can get far enough south they won't want to follow us, I say. She seems a little mollified. Okay then. But let me know if I need to sacrifice my life for the colony. Nobody is asking you to die, okay? It's fine. She doesn't seem convinced and shuffles about on my head a little more before moving on to her next line of questions. So what are we doing? Oh God. We are going to get ready to move out. As soon as the colony is assembled we are going to leave, I answer. Okay. So why are your antennae so funny looking? Kill me. Please. Putting up with Vibrant's pestering, I go to Tiny and get him moving. His job is obviously to carry our precious cores in the sack. Inspecting closely, the sack seems to be of some sort of fine material. Is this velvet? Or a tapestry or something? Exactly where did he get this thing? Doesn't matter. Within 10 minutes the colony has assembled, hundreds of workers carrying brood and eggs whilst others surround the queen to protect her. All together in one huge mass with me and Tiny at the head we move out. The colony is on the march. We march for 2 days straight. No rest, no sightseeing, and strictly no deviation from the designated path. Although I say no sightseeing, the pest on my head is completely curious about everything. Along the way I have to explain what a farm is, why they are necessary, the basic understanding of the human digestive tract, gut bacteria, bacteria in general, and what a screaming mob of people running for their lives is. The colony takes a day to make it out the other side of the forest, and from there we mostly run into small farming communities. On our way south we skirt around the buildings, ignoring the people as we pass through. There is one instance where we come across a town in the night and rather than deviate we just power straight through, causing the small riot that prompted the little one's excited questions. After 48 hours of straight running we dig a temporary nest and almost the entire workforce goes into torpor, me included. I'm knackered after that run. Despite being so tired I spend a little time planning out my own immediate future path. First, before evolving I need to try and get my mandibles around some biomass. I'm painfully aware that the further I evolve the deeper I'll have to go into the dungeon in order to secure a decent source of biomass points. It'll be much easier for me if I can go on an eating tour of the upper level before evolving so I can be more efficient with my gains. Then I have a heap of skill points saved up. Whilst fighting against weak monsters it'll be a great chance to build up some new skills. I was hugely impressed by the upgraded versions of the dash skills I'd been able to see for starters. I think I'll definitely pick that up. After that I'll have a look and see what I can find in the menu. I absolutely want to use my newfound core wealth to train core engineering as far as I can. If get a good evolution that will buff my mental stats again I'll be even more effective when modifying cores, increasing my level up speed. The day when I'll be able to realize my dream project is becoming closer and closer. I also need to pay attention to my pets, paving the way for Tiny to successfully evolve as well as stuffing Chrysalis full a few times a day until she can start to fight and level up. The days ahead sure are going to be busy. First we need to escape though. The next day we assemble the convoy and move out once more. The journey is tough and we have to tighten our belts a few times. What little monster prey we find is fed to the young and the workers go hungry. Tiny seems to have lost several sizes. I've never seen him so trim. After 3 more days we reach the border. The vast monster-filled wilderness is spread before us, our safety, our future. Chapter 163 Those Who Descend, That Which Rises. Titus stood huddled with his advisor in the center of the cramped chamber, his axe resting on its head on the dirt. Domlin was afraid of that axe. It had even invaded his dreams. The thick, bloodthirsty aura that seemed to roll a bit in waves was suffocating and ever-present. It had burst into wakefulness suddenly during the wave defense. The trainees had felt a strange stirring of the mana in the air before that aura had burst out, making them feel as if a demon had their throats between its teeth. And that's how they had felt every moment of every day since. The only blessing was that the beasts hated it as much as the trainees did. Ever since the axe had awakened they had ceased to attack the fort, choosing instead to battle against each other, keeping their distance from the Legion. The line soldiers had been relieved that, even if they felt the specter of death constantly, they no longer had to fight. The endless tide of monsters that had clashed against their defenses had claimed a few lives over the 2-week defense. For those young legionaries experiencing their first wave it was a sight they'd never forget. Thousands of monsters rolling forward like the tides. An endless sea of violence and death. Aiming hadn't been important, it was impossible to miss, no matter what skill was used. They fought for hours without pause, until their arms were heavy as lead, their vision blurred and their heads afire. Then they'd stumble to their blankets where they'd sleep like the dead before waking up to do it again. It had been hell. Up until the axe. Donlin had seen the looks on the officers' faces when it had happened. The monsters immediately fled the walls, but the brass had been shocked. Shocked and worried. The commander had raced to his tent where he'd left the axe and walked out with the thing slung over his shoulders and his eyes tight with worry. Being a magician in training, Donlin had managed to puzzle out exactly why they were so unhappy. That shift in the mana, as if it were being sucked down a sinkhole. The axe had drunk it in like water, causing it to awaken. Putting aside the idea of a sleeping or waking weapon, something that Donlin had never heard of, let alone thought possible, the reason why it was so strange was that it should not have happened. Not up here. Barely a few kilometers down, the mana should never be as thick as this. Not even close. It had grown so dense that it was enough for the axe to pull in and rouse itself, something none of the officers, certainly not the commander, had expected to happen. That left Donlin with yet another worry. Why was the mana so dense? Why was it still rising? He could feel it coming on now. Saturation sickness. Extended exposure to mana wasn't natural for humankind. The diffuse levels of energy on the surface were normal for their bodies. They had adapted to it over thousands of years. The levels he was experiencing now were too high. He was getting sick. All of the trainees were getting sick. If they didn't get relief soon, they would suffer mana poisoning. If they weren't treated then, they'd die. They knew that, everyone knew that. So why were they going deeper? Whilst Donlin chewed over his worries, Titus was speaking to one of his specialist trackers. "You're certain of that, Lycestis?" he asked. The legionary nodded. "That's what my dungeon sense is telling me, Commander. Many ants died here in the chamber, along with a whole lot of other stuff. No ant has died here in the last week or so. Either they were all dead by that point, or packed off somewhere else. What about the queen? You should be able to tell if a monster that size was killed, surely." Lycestis' face twisted a little as he concentrated, employing the skills of his secret class. "I can't tell, Commander. She may have died here with the colony, or not. Too many monsters have died in the meantime. I just can't pinpoint her." "No worries, man. Thanks for trying." Titus clapped him on the shoulder and sent him to rest. Dungeon seers were a tremendous use to the Legion, able to detect the residual energies of monsters after they had passed away. Deploying those unique skills depleted mental energy at a rapid pace, however. Lycestis would need a brief lie down after sensing this spot. Titus looked around the tight dirt chamber. This had been where the ant colony had lived, presumably after the queen had fled here from the lower levels, either chasing the young that had been stolen or fleeing from danger once her first nest had been uncovered. He'd managed to locate the nest, but either the colony had been killed by the wave or had escaped. If they'd managed to flee, then Titus had absolutely no idea where they could be. The matter was out of his hands now. Whilst he pondered the Legion's next move, he idly stretched his old bones. With the axe animosidio having awakened, he didn't need to continuously swat small fry. The weapon was constantly advertising its hunger, daring them to come. Only the stronger beasts would be able to step forward against that aura. Titus froze and cocked his ear. Something was coming. He raised a hand to get the attention of his troops in the chamber with him and warned them, "Hold yourselves." As the legionaries looked at their commander quizzically, they began to feel it also. As if the air itself had grown thick, the pressure upon them growing until it squeezed their insides. They heard it then, rumbling up from the tunnels leading below, a low growl that shook the dirt around them like an earthquake and drove several trainees to their knees. Many soldiers were forced to brace their hands to the walls to steady themselves as their legs seemed to have turned to porridge. The tremoring growl faded away only to be followed by a rising hiss that blew the air through the tunnels as if it were a gale. In the wake of that terrifying rush of air, the dungeon grew completely quiet around them, every monster having ceased battling where they stood. The stillness was eerie after 2 weeks of endless din. Titus' face was grim. He stared down at his axe, seemingly lost in thought. To most observers he appeared calm, but as she burst into the chamber and took him in, Aurelia knew that in his eyes the thirst for battle was burning. "Commander," she hissed, "was that what I thought it was?" Titus slowly walked to his weapon and picked it up as he spoke. "Garaloche. That bastard is coming up." Eyes wide with concern, Aurelia pressed her commander. "What are your orders, Commander? Will we move to intercept?" Titus shook his head. If we meet the old croc on the way down, then I'll happily take another arm from it, but we mustn't deviate from our mission." He turned to look his tribune in the eye. "I know you worry about the situation on the surface, but as bad as things are up there, it is going to be 10 times worse if we don't reinforce the bulwark below. You know this, Aurelia. We have to go down." Reluctantly, the officer nods her head and leaves the chamber to organize the troops. Donlin shakes off the pressure that had nearly crushed his bones and approaches his commander. An action such as this would normally be unthinkable for the trainee. He loved to stay low-key, but the panic rising in him overrode his judgment. "Commander, are we still going further down into the dungeon?" "Sir," he stammered, rushing forward to clutch at Titus' arm. The commander looked surprised to be accosted in this way, but not irritated. "Donlin, isn't it? Our fine young trainee. We have quite a ways down to go yet. But what of the mana sickness? What of the wave? It still hasn't stopped. The mana levels are still rising. We have to get to the surface. We have to help them, or the whole city will be destroyed, my family, my friends. What about us trainees? If we stay here in the dungeon, then we'll all die. You aren't sick, I can tell, I can see it. But us. We're all falling ill, the saturation is too much. You can't let us die like this, Commander." The trainee babbled. Titus raised one of his thick hands and clamped it down on the young man's shoulder, trying to steady him. "Easy there, boy. Easy. We won't let you die of the sickness, okay? You know I'm fine, the officers are fine, all of the full legionaries are fine. Once we get you down to HQ, you'll be fine too. But we have to hurry. I don't want to risk losing you to the saturation before we can get there. Now listen. We have a few days' journey until we reach Periclassus Stair. That'll take us straight down 20 kilometers. From there it'll be a short hop to the city and you'll be right as rain." Donlin's head spun. "City. You'll understand when you see it. We've done what we can for the surface, 2 weeks we bought them. From here out they have to manage their own defense. If they can't hold off the big croc, then they'll have to flee. Once we reach the city, we can see about contacting your family. We have ways." Donlin nodded, slowly calming himself down. Titus clapped him on the back. "Hold it together a bit longer, trainee. We've almost reached safety. Who knows? You might even get to see this axe take a chunk out of an ancient monster on the way down." Chapter 164, Settling New Lands. The Queen is holding up incredibly well. In fact, if I hadn't been sneaking the odd peek at her with my mana sense on, I wouldn't even know that her core was leaking energy. The brilliant radiance of her core has already faded to half of its full luster. After 5 days on the move, the whole colony is tired and desperate for rest. It's almost a shame that we aren't a nomadic ant species like the army ants. Mind you, those buggers are completely blind, so if I'd been born as one of those separate from the colony, there is no way I'd have been able to survive until now. Also, the entire reason those ants are nomadic is because they are so numerous and so ferocious that they strip the land bare of everything they can possibly eat, forcing them to move to a new location constantly. There is a lesson in that for our own colony going forward. We can't be so greedy as to strip the land bare. Intake will have to be managed. Well, that's in the far future if we ever manage to grow enough to dominate our environment. An ant can dream, damn it. Don't look down on my humble ambitions. All I want is for my family to rise. To be ascendant. It's a lot for a few ants to take on, but with a bit of grit and a heck of a lot of tunnel digging, I'm sure we can make it. We have arrived in our new land. A blessed place full of monster-infested nests and forests. Battle awaits around every corner, and that means only one thing. Biomass. This colony is hungry. We need food. Like an angry demon, the colony as a whole swept forward over the boundary separating the lands of Lyria from the untamed wild. Despite keeping a close eye behind us, we never saw pursuit from the humans we had left behind, which surprised me a lot. Once we made it over the border, the tension I'd carried inside, expecting an attack to arrive at any moment in retaliation for our grand theft core, evaporated. There is no way they'll be bothered to chase us into here, surely. The workers don't care. They dive right in, marching forward, antennae eagerly sweeping over every rock and plant in the hopes of flushing out a monster. Whenever we run into some surface monsters, they either attempt to flee or leap out to attack. The former are shot with acid until they can't move, and the latter are promptly ripped to pieces and distributed amongst the workforce. Even I'm forced to eat some of it in order to force away my hunger. I get a bonus point for new source, but nothing else. These creatures are so weak they provide nothing to myself and Tiny. We have got to get ourselves into the dungeon quickly so we can mutate. Unfortunately, we can't set up a nest until we find a section of dungeon close to the surface that we can occupy. The queen absolutely has to be inside the mana-infused air of the dungeon in order to live. The imminent demise of our collective mother puts a lot of pressure on us workers, and we hustle here and there trying to find an entrance. After 2 days of desperate searching, when the panic in my thorax was reaching critical mass, we finally succeeded. A relatively narrow crack in the earth, occupied by some rather tough-looking dog-faced bipeds that I'd never seen before. After annihilating them with sheer numbers, a minor helping of gravity magic, and Tiny's judiciously applied fist, the digging work begun immediately. With over 1,000 workers getting their faces stuck right into the work, we are able to tunnel down into the dungeon and occupy it through sheer numbers. Up above, the hill is rapidly forming. Once the queen is safely ensconced under the ground, calmly regenerating her strength, covered in a defensive layer of workers, the surface chambers are formed and the brood are nestled within. At last. Tiny and I, with minimal help from Vibrant, excavate our own private chamber once again with the upper reaches of the anthill. The cores are safely stored within the wall and the 4 of us settle down for a well-earned rest. Why are we resting? Be quiet, Vibrant. I'm up. I'm ready. It's time to take on a new day. So many things to go about doing, I can't even decide where to start. First things first, I rush over to Tiny and poke him with a leg until he wakes up. Wake up, big guy. It's time to go and eat until we can't walk. When he hears of the feast to come, his eyes snap open, blazing with a fierce energy. He hasn't had a good feast in over a week. This ape is desperate for a feed. What's more, he knows we aren't hunting on the surface today but exploring a brand new stretch of dungeon. If he's lucky, then we might even find something tough to fight. Personally, I doubt it. One of the things I had learned from the human queen when I interrogated her about the dungeon was just what the environment down there was like. Apparently the tunnels, also known as the Narrows, run in an almost endless web beneath the surface, main tunnels branching in all directions with smaller offshoots breaking off and looping back on themselves endlessly. The main hunting grounds for the humans isn't these tunnels but is instead the areas they refer to as the expanses. Every expanse is a cavernous open space beneath the earth of impossible size, full of spawn points, bizarre plants, rare minerals and powerful monsters. The area beneath Lyria was called the Forest Expanse, and according to the Queen, the entire reason the city had been founded in that location was to gain easy access to the expanse and monopolize its resources. The Forest Expanse isn't even a large one, it's considered quite small amongst those known of even locally. It had the great benefit of being much closer to the surface, however. Tiny and I gather up Chrysalis and Vibrant, who pesters us with endless questions as usual, and we eagerly rush past a dozing queen and her entourage into the lower tunnels. A brand new dungeon. Excitement boils up inside me almost without me even noticing. Finding new places and learning new things is something that has brought me endless joy in this new world. I can't wait to see what we find. Chapter 165, Green Thumb. The cool light of the dungeon welcomes my small party home as Tiny and I follow the tunnel deeper beneath the earth, Vibrant and Chrysalis tagging along for the ride. The goal of this trip, and for the next few days, is to absorb as much biomass as I possibly can before evolving and pushing my evolutionary level penalty further and further. Every time I evolve, the less biomass I'll get from creatures that haven't evolved as much as me. After my next evolution, I'll be tier 4 monster, with 3 evolutions under my belt. Considering I started as the statistically pathetic hatchling worker ant, which has almost no strengths to speak of, I can only say that I've come far from humble origins. Not only do I require biomass, Tiny also needs to eat, as well as gain XP to push him towards his next evolution. I briefly conversed with him as we rushed through the Queen's chamber, and he was able to communicate that he had not yet reached level 20, therefore he needs to be the one absorbing all of the XP. Chrysalis and Vibrant have tagged along since they both need to eat, and Vibrant needs to gain more XP so she can evolve. Considering she was born with a core, we don't need to worry about using her first evolution to form one, so she can directly be promoted to mature worker ant. I still intend to have her absorb a special core and see if she gets any juicy options that I may have missed out on, since I didn't know that special cores and the extra evolutions they unlock even existed at that time. Still, I wonder what monsters we will encounter. New section of dungeon, hopefully we get to see something new. I really don't want to have to keep battling centipedes all the time. Ever since I was born, there's been centipedes around every corner. Giant centipedes with spikes in their B-zone is not exactly something I want in my face all day, let alone actually having to eat. If I see even one centipede I may call the whole trip off. The tunnel we are following seems to be slightly narrow, most likely not a major one. I can feel monsters gestating in the walls, so apparently the wave is still not over, but they don't seem to coming out at all. To my senses they seem to be developing less rapidly than the monsters in the dungeon we had encountered during the wave. Those guys had popped out after a dozen minutes so, like donuts in a deep fry. When I flip on my mana sense I can see a more powerful reaction from these sleeping beasts. It seems the monsters here might be slightly stronger or more complex, requiring more mana for the dungeon to form them. Or is the wave receding and the mana isn't sufficient to pump out the monsters as quickly as before? Bit of a head scratcher. The workforce already invaded this section of tunnel and cleaned it out when the queen took up residence, so we'll have to push a little deeper if we want to sate our hunger. With Tiny in the lead we eagerly rush forward, looking left and right for something to fight. After 5 minutes or so I notice something off. Isn't it quite green in here? Contrary to my normal dungeon experience, the stone here seems to have actual vines growing on it. And is that a flower I detect? Since when the hell have there been colorful flowers like this about? The flower in question is poking out of the rock on the wall, about halfway up, looking offensively harmless. A bright red in color and with vivacious petals that really give a refreshing feeling of spring. I didn't come down here to admire the flowers. I came for food. However, as if mocking my expectations, the vegetation only grows thicker and more vibrant as we descend until the tunnel widens out and we find ourselves in a place that looks rather less like the dungeon and more like a scene straight from a rainforest. I expect singing bears and man cubs to walk around the corner at any minute. Not only do I not get any sweet rhythms, I also don't see any monsters around here. Vines string across the tunnel, dangling moss in our faces, and the rock walls are barely visible beneath layers of leaves and shrubs. Here and there are truly massive flowers and ferns that sway with the breeze. Hang on. We're underground. There is no breeze. The light bulb goes on in my head just as the many plants and vines start shifting and moving, almost unfolding as they reveal hideous plant mouths laced with razor-sharp teeth. God damn it, Seymour, not this crap again. Watch out for the plants. They're monsters. Tiny was already into it before I spoke. Roaring with excitement, the giant ape leaps forward to grab one of the plants by the throat. Before beginning to pummel it in the face with his massive fists, rocking it from side to side with devastating hooks. All around me vines begin to whip through the air as they try to latch onto me, or simply lash me with their suddenly razor-sharp leaves. Some fire magic would surely go down well right about now. I'll have to settle for implementing the jaws. Splintering chomp. Pouring forth my vital energy, the mandibles of light manifest themselves. When I use the shattering bite, the ethereal mandibles look like wide, rusty saw blades that close like a vice, tearing and compressing. For the more armor-penetrating chomp attack, they manifest as blades studded with long, pointed spikes. Ripping my mandibles closed, they slam shut, cutting vines and stabbing wide holes in fleshy plants. For now they only extend about a meter in front of my face, but as I level up the skill they'll get larger and more potent. At least that is how it's worked with the shattering bite skill. With vines and leaves falling around me like rain, it's time to employ another new skill I purchased, Dash. Dash increases speed over short distances but increases stamina drain. With a burst of movement I motor across the room faster than I've ever moved before. Turning my head, I can see Vibrant is clinging to my head whilst cackling madly, and even Chrysalis has extended extra tentacles as her main body is sliding back. Geez. Even at level 1 the increase is close to 30% of my max speed. Although I can feel the corresponding stamina drain is vastly increased, I'm actually extremely impressed with this skill so far. Rushing towards the nearest plant, I sprint through the vines, ignoring those that smash into me, trusting my defenses to deflect the damage. Above me a giant, somehow angry-looking plant is looming, mouth agape and ready to devour me whole. Not today, buddy. Shattering bite. I bring my jaws down on the stem of the plant. It's time to mow this lawn. Chapter 166 Combine Harvester. Having severed the stem of the plant, the huge flower on top topples to one side, its comically oversized mouth thrashing about, trying to bite me until the final bit of energy leaked out of its body. You have slain level 6 Flow's fame. You have gained experience. Muahaha. After smashing through the Kingdom Animalia, it's time to reap biomass from Planty. There are dozens of plants scattered about the tunnel engaged in this battle, some of them attacking with vines, trying to cut and control their prey so they can bring to their cavernous mouths, whilst others employ different methods of attack. Towards the back I can see a completely different looking plant. A long tube-like flower head sits atop a bulbous base. The tube on top seems to be rotating as if tracking the action. All of a sudden a huge jet of liquid erupts from the flower, gushing straight at me. Leap. Pushing hard with all legs I jump upwards and to the right, narrowly dodging the spray that I can see is a very familiar sort of attack. Some of the fluid splashes over the creature I just killed and begins to eat away at the body at a ferocious pace. That is some serious acid. The damned plant is aiming at me again. Quickly legs, dash. Hold on tight back there. I shout at my passengers as my legs once again fire into top gear, moving so quickly they completely blur out of sight. Wee. Giggles Vibrant as the air pressure has her clinging onto my carapace. With only a few claws, the rest of her legs dangling behind her in the air. I thought I said hold on, you moron. Checking on my other passenger I can see that Chrysalis has also extended out of a few extra tentacles to let them be blown backward by the wind. At least she was sensible enough to not let go with any of her other limbs. I can't wait until these troublemakers are too large to ride on my back. Not long now, Anthony, hold on a little more. Somehow the tube plant is able to track my movement and fires several short bursts of acid towards me as I race toward it, forcing me to zig and zag to throw of its aim. I can almost smell the fear of this aggressive vegetable as I close in, mandibles slowly opening wide. Splintering chomp. Being careful to only penetrate the plant with my ethereal mandibles and not my own physical ones, I crunch down savagely on the bulging sac at the base of the plant. As I expected, the moment my jaws puncture through the soft flesh of the plant, massive gouts of acid begin to spray out everywhere as the internal pressure forces the fluid through these new outlets. The plant sways violently like a drunk as its precious acid leaks away, but it hasn't taken any fatal damage. Aiming another shot at me, from point-blank range I can almost feel the plant screaming at me, damned meatbag. Take this. But I've already raced away. The usual jet of fluid doesn't materialize, instead a rather sad dribble of acid pours out of the tube. Without sufficient pressure it seems this particular flowery foe has lost its bite. Go-ho. Just like this I start to race around the cavern with my two passengers having way too much fun, disabling the plant monsters by trimming their leaves, chopping at their vines and puncturing their weak points. Tiny continues his berserk rampage, ripping plants apart with his bare hands, smashing their main bodies to pulp, even shoving his arm into the gaping mouth of one plant and pulling it inside out. Disgusting. I mean, was that strictly necessary, Tiny? You could have just punched it in the face, but no, pulling it inside out from its mouth. That's an image I have to live with now, thanks. In short order we managed to cull this particular section of tunnel, handing most of the experience off to Tiny and letting Vibrant take the last hit on two of the plants to pump her levels a little bit. Now time for the feast. After eating meat and squishy internal organs for most of my new life I'm ready to try something new. A bit of leafy greens, essential fiber. Starting with one of the big-mouthed flowers I start to chow down on this new cuisine. HMMMMM. Chewy, rough, extremely fibrous, almost like eating a rope. And oh. The internals are quite squishy and horrible. This is just as bad as eating centipedes. Damn it. Come on, Gandalf. When are we going to find a monster that is basically a nice pie on legs? Or a monster that fires roasted chicken out of its face cannon? Surely there is something is this damn dungeon that tastes good. I should have had Tiny rob the kitchen at the castle as well as the treasury. Tiny, Vibrant and Chrysalis don't seem to particularly care as they rip into the biomass with gusto. I'm still confused at how Chrysalis, despite being so much smaller than me, manages to have a bigger mouth than I do. Oh well. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Flow's Flame. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Flow's Flame, unlocked. Flow's Flame, Hunger Flower, a basic type monster of the plant kingdom. The Hunger Flower uses heat sensitivity to track its opponents, attack them with sharp vines and drag them to its mouth for consumption. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Acidum Olum. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Acidum Olum unlocked. Acidum Olum, Acid Pot. This base plant-type monster uses a powerful jet of acid to attack and defeat its foes. The main body of the creature is actually mobile, allowing it to drag itself towards the remains of its victims in order to feast. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Vine Bestia. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Vine Bestia unlocked. Vine Bestia, Vine Beast. The vine beast is a curious cross of both plant and animal, being a mobile vine nest that doesn't have a distinct main body but spreads its vital organs around its network of vines. Whilst this does make the creature difficult to fight, with no central target to strike, if you can identify a key organ in one of the vines, it can be defeated quickly. I'm pretty sure Tiny just ripped the vines of the wall and flattened them until they stopped moving. What level have you reached, Vibrant? I ask the little worker, still stuffing its face with food. To be fair, I am as well. We don't need our mouths to speak after all. The little worker waves her antennae at me as she eats. The voice said that Vibrant has reached level 4. Am I strong yet? Ah, no, not at all. Boo. But you'll have a chance to get stronger really soon. Once you reach level 5 you'll be able to evolve into a stronger monster. Yay. But I want you to wait, okay? If you wait until we can reinforce your core then you'll be able to evolve into something even stronger. The little ant seems to think about it for a while. Okay. But what should I spend my biomass points on now that I have a +5 pheromone gland? I sort of shrug with my antennae, still eating. Whatever you like, try to get every body part to +5 as quickly as you can. Just pick the mutations that seem interesting to you. After our brief conversation, Vibrant turns silent for a time, a rare event indeed. She might be going through the menu perhaps, looking at options. I watch her carefully as I eat, hoping to see some sort of debilitating sign of mutation itch occurring but nothing. Damn it. I myself gain 4 biomass, 3 from bonus points and 1 from snacking, before I stop. I don't want to fill up on this week's stuff, I need more powerful evolved monsters to eat. Chrysalis and Vibrant don't need to fight, so they should stuff themselves now, then again later to maximize their benefits. Time to go deeper. Chapter 167 The Finer Vegetation, Compressed. We continue to progress further into the dungeon, ensuring we stick with the larger paths at every opportunity. Even though we walk past dozens of smaller tunnels we ignore them all. If we want to quickly progress downwards or locate an expanse then by far the best way, according to what I've learned from my interrogation, is to stick to the larger passages. The bigger the better. Not wanting to hand about too much and waste time I let Tiny smash his way through the various plant creatures that fill the tunnel on the way. Able to pulp these veggies with one fist, the big fellow doesn't even appear to be getting tired when we start to encounter some more nasty-looking creatures. It really does give a different vibe, these plant-filled sections of dungeon. Used to seeing cold stone, dark earth and waves of beast or insect-type creatures, it's almost refreshing to have such a leafy environment. Never mind the fact that such plants would obviously normally require access to sunlight in order to survive. I presume that since they eat biomass like everything else in the dungeon there really isn't any need for them to photosynthesize. That being the case then, why are they still so leafy? After an hour of pushing through the riff-raff and following the many bends in the dungeon we finally encounter some creatures that I suspect have evolved once. Larger flowers with mouths, a bushy plant that actually rushed about on its roots as if they were legs, even a bizarre reed-type creature that cast water spells at us, great jets of water blasting out of thin air. Tiny punched all of it to heck and we even collected a core from the magic one. Every now and again I continue to flick on my mana sense to inspect the creatures growing within the walls. They are clearly still there and growing. Every now and again we see a plant monster push its way out of the wall and fly at us in a rage. What's curious is that the regular plant-type monsters we find don't seem to attack each other much. I can only presume they feed on something else that comes this way that just isn't present at this moment in time. Constantly doing this has thankfully leveled my mana sense up to level 5. With every level the range and sensitivity of that strange sense becomes sharper and more useful. Eventually we reach a wide tunnel space filled with greenery and vegetation, large plant monsters dotting every surface with other more mobile creatures wandering about seeking prey. I can see some fairly nasty-looking individuals in here, this might be good enough. Quickly checking my tunnel map I can see that we stuck to the plan and roughly descended down beneath where the colony has settled. In terms of lateral distance we have moved about 1 kilometer despite rushing into the dungeon for 2 hours. This is the spot. Okay. Tiny, this is the next feast zone. I hope you're hungry. Tiny nods his head rapidly as he stares at the monsters before him. You'd think he hadn't eaten in days. Tiny ready to eat. Go get him. Unleashing a fearsome bellow, Tiny leaps forward with shocking speed, raising both fists over his head and bringing them down with a tremendous crash. That's one mashed veggie. Time for this ant to get into the fight. I've been getting bored watching Tiny smash his way through the dungeon with ease. Charging up my mandibles with gravitational mana, I try to test their effectiveness on a large, dark purple flower on the opposite side of the tunnel. Yoink. Or not. The creature is pulled from the wall and clearly distressed, but its many roots cling tenaciously to the rock and soil. Even that might not have been enough had the plant not lashed out with its vines and grabbed hold of any rock pillar it could reach to hold itself in place. I cut off the flow of mana to my mandibles and release the pressure on the plant. Looks they can hold on tight enough to stop me pulling them out of the ground. Let's try something else then. I quickly begin to fashion a gravity bolt in my mind, constructing the mind-bending shape with threads of mana at a much faster speed than I could manage originally. Behold the effect of my daily practice. Every moment I get the spare time, I've been practicing my shaping skills, becoming more and more familiar with these basic spell shapes. How many thousands of gravity bolts have I constructed, only to let the shape dissipate and start over again? Not even I can tell you. The practice is paying off though. Although I still need to focus and push my mind to manipulate the mana, the extensive training has made the process more reflexive and faster. Where it may have taken me a minute or more the first time I used the spell, I can now slam one together in about 6 seconds. Gravity Bolt. Targeting the same plant on the wall, I fire off the gravity bolt and keenly await the result of this experiment. I've been wanting to see something like this for a while now, a creature able to resist my gravity to some extent. The gravity spell strikes home easily since, after all, a plant can't dodge too effectively. Once the magic takes effect, the purple flower, which is rooted in the wall roughly halfway up, begins to feel the powerful force dragging it towards the tunnel floor. Once more the plant digs in, literally. Every root and vine, every available fiber is tasked with keeping the flower firmly attached to the wall, but even so the struggle is real. If plants could sweat, this tunnel would be underwater by now. Still, the flower manages to hold on, leaves and petals drooping with exhaustion yet somehow emitting a triumphant feeling. The plant creature has held on against my spell. Good. Time to bust out the big guns. I've been thinking on the forceful mana skill for a while now. Is its purpose really only to create devastating bomb spells? The skill description says that it is used to compact mana, so thinking logically, that compacted mana ought to be able to be used in any way that mana can be used right. Time to test. Once more I quickly construct a bolt spell. Shimmering inside me and pictured within my mind, the spell is a 3-dimensional shape of dizzying intricacy built wholly from gravitational mana. Now the tricky bit. Slowly I begin to draw out more mana from my gravity gland. The deep purple energy responds to the direction of my will and begins to drift towards the construct. This time, however, I don't simply pour it in, filling up the shape. I begin to condense it. Shoving the mana against itself and pressing it down, I squeeze it into the construct and then pack more in after it, compressing the mana as much as I can. My mind begins to shake with the effort of controlling the fluctuating energy as it roils and shudders within me. Gritting my mandibles, I double down on my control, both brains straining to the limit. This spell is literally being formed within my body, remember. If it explodes or something, let's not think about it. Carefully I continue to condense and force the mana into the construct. Over time the shape I had built seems to be straining, struggling to contain the sheer density of the mana within it. Easy now, Anthony. If it pops, you likely will too. On the other side of the tunnel, 40 meters away, the purple flower is slowly recovering from the fright it had earlier, blissfully unaware of the nearby ants straining to test a new spell on it. Rest up, flower. Once this spell is ready, I want to see exactly how well you can hold up. If I manage to finish it. The mental strain is doubled since I'm not even sure if this is going to work. I'm handling the mana with every bit of care I can possibly manage whilst simultaneously crunching it with my mind. Slowly. Carefully. Condense it. Done. Finally the spell is fully charged with condensed mana. Beholding the unstable-looking, shuddering construct with my mind, I can't help but shiver. That was close. A little more and the construct wouldn't have been able to hold. Not willing to wait around, I quickly aim my spell at the flower and unleash it. The gravity bolt streaks through the air. It doesn't look much different than the normal version of the spell so far, perhaps a little darker in the shade of purple. The bolt strikes home against the flower and the magic field takes shape. The plant seems to sense what is about to happen and once again digs in with its roots. Then the force takes hold. Rip. In 1 second the plant is torn out of the ground, vines and roots flailing madly, even tearing the rocks it had gripped straight out of the ceiling. They crashed to the ground with a boom. Against the floor of the tunnel, the flower is being savagely compressed as the crushing force of gravity presses down on it like the foot of a titan. I can't believe how well it worked. Good stuff. Chapter 168. Salad a la carte. You have slain level 13 Venenum Flows Caligo. Seriously. The spell was not only powerful enough to rip the plant monster from the wall, it also crushed it to death on the floor of the cavern. Forceful mana is no joke. By compressing the mana used to fuel the spell, it completely supercharged it. What would happen if we're to do the same for the javelin? Or the domain? My mind is boggling. It's boggling right out of my head, Gandalf. If it boggles even a little bit more, it's going to join my eyeballs on the floor. My control is still lacking though. It took over a minute for me to carefully charge the spell. Almost as long as it would take to make a charged gravity bomb. Hopefully with practice I'll be able to get quicker at forming the charged spells. As impressed as I am with the effects of this spell, I can see Tiny is currently battling on his own, getting drenched in acid and what appear to be poisonous fumes whilst I diddle about playing with magic. Mind you, he seems happy. Roaring at the top of his lungs, fists crackling with electricity as he lashes out with wild abandon even as the wounds pile up on his body. I swear, with his unquenchable thirst for battle and reckless fighting style, this ape is like a protagonist from a generic novel. Chill out, big guy. I'm coming to help. Once again, dash. It is so hard to keep my mind focused on fighting with that going on. Dash has reached level 2. Level ups bring me a lot of joy. Don't judge me. Rushing forward, I engage in the vicious melee that is swirling around my giant ape pet. The plant-type monsters we are engaging now and significantly more threatening than those we encountered earlier. The purple flowers are shooting blasts of pollen or gas that I suspect may cause some sort of poison effect. I'm not too game to find out, so every time it's aimed at me I dash the heck out of there. Sizing up the creatures firing at us from range, I decide to present the commercial district and allow them to sample my wares. Pow. 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 Blast after blast of acid is fired off, immediately gumming up the pestering plants and eating into their fibrous bodies. Take that, you flowery foes. In all, I fire off 6 shots of acid, nearly emptying my tank, but it's worth it if it keeps those poisonous flowers off our back. Suddenly I feel myself being bombarded by savage lashes. What the heck? In my peripheral vision I can see that the vines I'd seen lying on the ground and creeping up the tunnel walls have come alive, whipping through the air so quickly all they leave are blurred afterimages as they strike me over and over. That stings, damn it. My diamond carapace is extremely tough, able to absorb most of the impact with only slivers of my HP being drained, but the pain of having the continuous impacts roll through my body is still there. Stupid vine beast. Turning to face my new opponent, I noticed this isn't the same tangle of vines we'd run into before. The individual vines are thicker, more dexterous, and amongst the web of vines I can see several thick clusters where numerous vines have tangled together in thick clumps. I brighten up seeing this. I must be facing an evolved vine beast here. Excellent. This should yield a decent amount of biomass. Posturing left and right, I start constructing a gravity bolt which I fire off in a matter of seconds. I targeted one of the vine clumps, hoping to see how debilitated the creature becomes when they are affected. To my surprise, the plant monster blocks the spell, whipping several vines in the way to disperse the magic before it can strike home. Interesting. The struck vines immediately succumb to the gravitational pull, slumping to the ground despite their best efforts. The rest of the creature seems curiously unaffected though, the gravity pulling down on only those vines that were struck by the spell. There are still dozens of vines thrashing through the air, lashing out frequently to batter my carapace. Even Vibrant is forced to be vigilant and shift left and right to avoid getting clapped by a vine. I certainly don't want to have this promising worker get squished on top of my scalp. I'll have to do this a little more directly. Dash. Revving up my speed, I rush forward and spread my mandibles wide. As the vines whip towards me, I cut them with my chomp. Slice. Slice. Julienne veggies, like a pro. A rain of sliced vines fall around me, but still they keep coming. I can keep going. Slice. 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 As the vines keep coming, I keep chomping. The ethereal mandibles slashing through the vines at record speed until I arrive beneath one of the clumps. Rearing back with my head, I unleash my longer range bite. Shattering bite. Crunch. The mandibles smash shut, grinding the knot of twisting vines to paste. As I do so, a number of the connected vines fall limp, falling to the floor drained of their strength. Interesting, perhaps each of these dispersed clumps is in control of a number of vines. This monster having its vitals spread across the network of vines make it rather a pain in the butt to deal with quickly. I continue to slash my way through the endless vines, crunching each clump as I reach it until the entire creature finally falls still. You have slain level 8 Vine Trames. Finally. Puffing, I feel exhausted. Constantly using the advanced bite skills is super draining on my stamina. So much effort for a creature so much weaker than me. At least I gained a level on both skills. What's Tiny doing? Turning my head, I see Tiny is holding a plant in one hand that he has uprooted whilst punching it fiercely with his other hand. Around him is a veritable farmer's market of deceased plant monsters. Looking more closely, I think the plant he's holding is already dead, which he should know, since he would have heard the announcement. He's just punching it. I think it's dead there, big guy. He turns to look at me before slamming his fist into the very deceased plant one more time. Annoying, he grunts. The poison effect. I ask. He just grunts. You going to be okay with that? I wonder. Does he need healing? Okay, I fix myself, he affirms. Fair enough. He must have some way of healing himself by now. Good purchase, Tiny. Since he's cleaned up most of the monsters, we settle down to eat. Nom nom nom. The crunching sounds of 4 monsters filling themselves to stuffed echoes through the tunnels of the dungeon. I don't stop eating until every stomach is so full I can barely walk, my gigantic shopping district dragging on the floor behind me. Tiny is in similar condition, looking comically round with a massive distended belly. I gained 10 biomass from that feast, plus 3 for new species. It feels so good to finally get some points. And I don't plan on stopping here. With Tiny's reluctant help, I excavate a small chamber out of the side of the tunnel, digging in a slightly diagonally upwards direction. Once I've created enough space, I seal the entrance and the 4 of us settle in to sleep off our meal. When we wake up, I'm going back in there again. Chapter 169, Stairway to Biomass. Hoopa. I snap to alertness hours later, ready for action. Vibrant and Chrysalis are still slumbering whilst riding on my back, the little ant using the ball like Jellymo as a pillow. Before resting, B had dug into the wall to create a resting chamber. I'd estimated how far the veins of light would be able to travel whilst we rested and made sure we had a bit of buffer. I didn't want dumb plant monsters spawning on our heads while re-rested from eating dumb plant monsters. I wouldn't have been able to take the irony. I have a huge wealth of biomass saved up at the moment, more than I've ever had before, but I don't want to spend it yet. I'll pile up as much as I can before heading back to the surface. This is a long-term pre-evolution feast fest bonanza. There ain't no brakes on this eating train. While I'm at it, I'll pump my pets full of biomass at the same time. Tiny will be ready to evolve soon, so he need as much biomass as I do, whereas Chrysalis just needs to keep on growing until she's ready to fight. Vibrant, on the other hand, is getting a prime opportunity to supercharge her growth. She'll be swimming in biomass points by the time we're done down here. Getting all of her organs to +5 should be a piece of cake. The second part of our mission here is to create a path back to the surface, a staircase if you will. I don't want to have to follow winding tunnels hither and thither every time I want to come down into the dungeon. If the colony is going to settle here long term, then a shortcut to the deeper dungeon is absolutely in order. After I evolve, I'll have to go even deeper than this to get a decent amount of biomass. At that time, the shortcut will have to be extended downwards. Time to get up, you slugs. I shout at my lazy crew. As usual, Tiny requires a few extra pokes until he's ready to get up. He waves me away, even reaching over with one massive hand to push me as he tries to cover his eyes. Teenage rebellion. There'll be food. The ape's eyes snap open like lightning and he leaps to his feet, purposefully flexing his fingers, looking every inch alert and ready for action. Damn ape. Have you no shame at all? Vibrant jumps into action quickly. Morning, senior. Are we eating again today? Will there be dashing? She asks. There absolutely will be dashing. I declare, I won't miss a chance to train my skills. Yade. Vibrant cheers, even Chrysalis extends a few tentacles into the air and wiggles them happily. What is this scene? Are we on a family vacation or about to engage in slaughter and gruesome feasting? Or is it both? Who cares? Onwards. Descending back down our newly dug tunnel, we do indeed encounter a few newly spawned plant creatures which we destroy as an appetizer, feeding the last hits to Vibrant. Then we step out into the main tunnel once again. Chaos. Fighting. We haven't even started yet. This is very different to the scenes we saw yesterday. Everything was surprisingly chill with the plants until we started to rumble with them. But here are engaged in what looks like all-out war. Up and down the tunnel there are plant monsters doing ferocious battle with other creatures that we hadn't seen before. At first glance they appear to be like heavily muscled pigs or boars. On closer examination there is something strange about their hides. They seem to glisten, or shimmer in the light. It's almost as if they're metallic. Are these metal pigs? Indeed, all around us the plants are engaged in a fight to the death with these pigs who tear at them with fierce tusks or charge them into the ground before ripping into their plant fibers with their teeth. On my right, further back and surrounded by plants I can see a giant pig, the mega pig. Easily twice the size of its smaller pig brethren, this specimen is obscenely muscular, almost grotesquely bulging with mass beneath its thick, gleaming hide. Well, if these guys have metallic properties to their skin, electricity ought to go right through them, right? Tiny, go punch up that giant thing over there. I'll take care of the plants and small fry. He acknowledges my instructions with a nod and grunt combo. Unusually communicative for him in a fight. I can only presume he agrees with these instructions. Baring his fangs he trundles forward, building up momentum gradually until he's flying at full speed, the ground trembling beneath the impact of his massive fists. As he charges, electricity ripples along his arms and shoulders, gathering in intensity like a storm. Finally he bursts through the crowd of plants cornering the massive boar and roars his challenge, smashing out with one mighty fist. Electrical energy flashes through that fist and lights up the piggy like a Christmas tree. The victim bellows in pain, thrashing wildly with its body and throwing the ape back with a titanic crash. Holy moly. I do not want to be caught in the middle of that. Still, it seems my hypothesis on the metallic skin being weak against Tiny rang true. I think I saw that monster skeleton. Those two big bruisers can go at it. My job is serve the greens on the side. Dashing madly about with my cheering hangers on clinging to my back. I fire acid at the annoying ones and move quickly to snip apart the most dangerous plants. Any pigs I come across are ground into mince by the relentless application of my infused mandibles and shattering bite, metallic skin or no. Their defense is quite hefty, I have to admit, but these particular pigs either haven't mutated it or need to further evolve before it matches up to the Earth Bear Tyrant. I do get smashed in the side at one point by a charging pig, but the diamond carapace holds firm. Idiot pig. Out of metal or diamond, which do you think was going to be superior? Muahahaha. As I clean out the smaller creatures, Tiny continues to dominate the big pig, smashing it about with his powerful lightning fists. Each time he connects, a ringing boom bursts out like a thunderclap, telling of the immense force behind each swing. Boom. 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 The pig is reeling at this point, staggering from side to side, desperately swinging its head to try and gouge Tiny with a tusk, but it isn't going to happen. The ape smartly backs of a touch as he watches his prey intently with his bad eyes. Finally he seems to sense weakness and opens his mouth wide to unleash his sonic scream. Scree. Holy crap. That is only getting louder. With my firm will I hold on, but all around me plants and pigs are drooping to the ground, stunned by the shattering noise. On my head Vibrant has gone completely limp, flopping like a wet towel. Even Chrysalis is looking more like melted jelly than her usual self. The pig was taken completely by surprise. The point-blank sonic attack has blasted it senseless momentarily, and Tiny takes advantage by winding up a massive two-handed hammer. Leaping into the air to unleash the full weight of his frame, the ape collects a ferocious amount of lightning in his fists, causing them to glow so brightly I can barely stand to look at them. Boom. Both hands collapse like a falling mountain on the head of the unfortunate pig, the discharged electricity rippling through its body and roasting it from the inside. I'm determined not to get my hopes up. This dungeon will surely find a way to make even roast pig taste disgusting. With their leader, the rest of the pigs and the battered plants aren't able to resist us for long. Within 20 minutes we are once again seated, feasting without rest, without remorse. Nom nom nom. I gain another 8 biomass from this meal, plus 1 for the new species. My wealth is amassing. Not to mention a few skill level ups I achieved in the fight. Dash has reached level 3. Shattering Bite has reached level 6. With plenty of energy left since we only recently woke up, the gang is set to digging the shortcut again, carving a more direct path back to the colony. Through the dungeon. After several hours of dirt-shifting labor we rest once more. Chapter 170 Field Trip ends. Itching begins. Our field trip lasts for 4 more days before we finally complete our shortcut tunnel and return to the surface. I was able to utilize my tunnel map to avoid crossing over any existing tunnels, though we did draw close a few times. With accurate planning and tunnel engineering, we were able to break through only a few kilometers from the site of the anthill. Now the journey that took us several hours through twisting and turning passages has been reduced to a 20-minute jaunt. I mean, we'll have to fight our way through anything that begins to spawn in there, but we would have to do that no matter which way we went. I am pleased. Very pleased with this result. After eating my fill over and over again, an unprecedented amount biomass has been stored. I may have developed some kind of permanent stomach pain, but it was worth it. I haven't got nearly enough to upgrade every single part of my body to +10, but that'll take ages. I'm just not sure I can wait that long. Evolution is beckoning to me. Like the song of the siren, it tugs at my soul every moment I'm awake. The mind ant has been a fantastic species, but I feel as if I'm pushing at the boundaries of what I can do. I need to take the next step. Push my stats to a higher limit. Then I'll really be able to flex my magical skills to the maximum. Although my ultimate goal is be an all-rounder, with powerful physical skills as well as magical prowess, I feel as if I'm right on the edge of being able to use magic the way I want to. With a boost to my cunning and willpower, some extra juice in my subbrain, the currently daunting and impractical task of transforming mana could be shifted within reach. With some practice, I might be able to master a few transformations, and then I could cast fire or water spells to round out my complement of offensive magic. Then I could double back and pour my resources into physical strength on the subsequent evolutions. It shouldn't take too long for my body to catch up with my mind. After all, if the pattern holds true, then the next evolution will require me to reach level 40 and buff my core to 200 megapixels. My crew track our way back to the seemingly even larger anthill and its contingent of defender ants. The colony is getting back into a regular groove, it seems, with trails leading off into the surrounding territory and workers scurrying back with food in their mandibles. I'm not too worried the workers will be challenged by the surface-level monsters, unless there are some very old beasts lying about unseen. I haven't noticed anything capable of tackling a swarm of workers up here. Descending into the colony, I find the queen is happily recuperated, resting in the warm glow of the dungeon light. As monsters spawn in her chamber, they are instantly covered in a pack of manic workers, protecting their queen as well as supplying the much-needed biomass. Curiously, I don't notice too much new brood in the nest. Those that we had before have mostly hatched, bringing our numbers back to over 1,000, but it seems that since then there haven't been many new ants born. Perhaps the queen was on break whilst she was healing up. Never mind, I'm sure it'll kick into high gear again after we settle in. Once I've trained my skills, I might even be able to finally activate my long-held plans for ant supremacy. Taking the gang back into our own little chamber, we add the cores we were able to harvest on our field trip to the established horde. Compared to what we stole from the queen, it's a drop in the ocean, but another 15 cores is always welcome. As Tiny retrieves that sack of cores from the wall, my eyes light up with the precious gleam and glitter of the small spherical gems. Wealth. Precious wealth. If I'm a dragon, then this is my hoard. Senior, why are you drooling? Vibrant asks. Gah. I hastily wipe my mouth on a foreleg and attempt to regain my dignity as the senior ant. Did Tiny see that? The ape is standing in front of me with a curiously blank look on his face as he holds the sack open. Pretending he noticed nothing. Good work, Tiny. Now you won't have to be smacked in the head with cores. Quickly estimating, I think we have around 400 cores on hand. With these, I'll have to make sure my pets and Vibrant get the perfect evolutions they deserve, as well as train my core engineering skill to the peak. Before that though, time to consider what to spend all of my biomass on. Through repeated cycles of eating, digging and resting, I have amassed 72 biomass. It sounds like a lot, but when I consider how much is needed to get every organ to +10, it isn't nearly enough. My mandibles are at +8 already, so they'll be the first thing upgraded. I still don't know exactly what will happen once an organ reaches +10, but I'm hoping for another mutation advancement. Perhaps I'll have the same menu as before, or perhaps new more potent options. Time to find out. Excitedly, I ring up Gandalf and get this show on the road. Would you like to upgrade mandibles to +10? This will cost 19 biomass. Yes. At this level you can choose a mutation advancement. Please select from the menu. Yes. The now familiar long list of options appears in my mind and I instantly start scrolling through looking at the available choices. Yes, I see. Indeed. It seems as if the list of options is basically what I though. There are the same options I had before, a few new ones and several related to the infused mandibles I chose before. A familiar headache starts to develop, just what to choose. To start with, I try and pick out a few choices that I like. The vampiric mandibles are still here, draining life from my foes and healing myself as I bite sounds awesome. Except I already have the healing gland. What worries me more than not having enough healing is not being able to break through the defense. Berserk mandibles, which increase the damage the more I bite the target, also seemed good, but I'm worried about spending that much time chomping on one monster. This doesn't seem useful in a swarm situation. Let's check on some of the infused mandibles upgrades. Potent infused mandibles increases the speed of mana flow into the mandibles. I guess this will help me wind up for a big chomp faster, but I'm not sure that is really needed badly right now. Efficient infused mandibles provides a greater effect for less mana, increasing efficiency in mana consumption. This is okay, but it doesn't really excite me. Since I will have more uses for my mana shortly, an increase in efficiency sounds great, but I want something a little more offensive. Frustrated, I continue to scroll through the options, looking for something that meets my needs. My focus for my mandibles is to simply have the most powerful bite that I can. It's my bottom line. When all the fancy skills and magic are stripped away, what I want is the most damage I can get with my face hands. So in the end, I come back to the most basic of all of the upgrades. Savage mandibles increases the size and density of the mandibles to directly increase penetrating power and compression force. Bigger, badder mandibles. Nothing more, nothing less. Combined with infusion, my offensive bite will receive a huge boost. Do you wish to confirm your choice? Gimme. Erg. My beautiful face. Chapter 171, Laying the Foundation. Yah. The itching continues for a good long while, and this time I can actually see my own mandibles changing shape during the process. They being longer, more vicious looking and heavier. To compensate for the increased weight, the muscle density in my face is also shifted as part of the mutation, causing even more itching to consume me. After flailing around on the ground for 5 minutes, the feeling finally fades away and scrabble back onto my legs. Try to retain my dignified pose before once again hitting up the menu for more mutations. As much as I hate the feeling, I have to mutate. Mutate or die. I didn't spend those days eating dumb plants because I needed a fiber boost. Now I have a single body part at +10 and all of the rest at +5. I don't have nearly enough to upgrade everything. To take one body part from +5 to +10 will cost me 40 biomass, and I only have 53 left. That means I'll be able to take one more part to max level and one more to +7. I have to admit, I'm quite disappointed by that. I spent all of that time trying to fill myself with food, eating until I was practically a bouncy ball rolling around on the floor, and it only gets me this far. 2 body parts at +10. I'm very tempted to go back down into the dungeon for another few days to pile up more biomass. I haven't been able to get nearly enough. A small part of me regrets not eating those humans when I had the chance. I wouldn't be in this position if I hadn't gained all of those levels without eating anything at the same time. Still, eating humans is not quite right with me. Sighing internally, I'll just have to power forward as is. The urge to evolve is strong within me. I'll just have to make sure I dedicate a significant chunk of time to bringing my mutations up afterwards. Tiny and I will need to go much deeper and expand our shortcut into the lower reaches. Perhaps after evolving we'll be able to press into the boundary of the second strata. The Queen told me how the surface people have roughly divided the dungeon into layers. The top layer goes about 150 kilometers down and is called the first strata, or the layer of beasts. By far the smallest of the strata and containing the weakest monsters, the first strata is populated mostly by beast-type monsters, mutated and powerful versions of animals found on the surface living normally. Lions, tigers, pigs, centipedes, and also plant types. Ants are rarely found, I was told, and mostly right at the edge, between 45 and 50 kilometers down. The second strata is much larger and known as the layer of nightmares. The Queen was a little less forthcoming with information about this layer, either because she didn't know it or was trying to hide it. Apparently this layer extends from 30 kilometers to over 200 down. The Queen wasn't able to tell me exactly how far down it went. Apparently this layer is filled with strange shadow creatures that defy nature and reality. They can employ bizarre mind-bending magic, and some of the most powerful species are able to utilize space in strange ways, leaping into their own shadow to strike out of your own. This meshes with what I saw during the wave. As the mana in the walls intensified, the creatures spawned were strange shadow beasts, Even Chrysalis was spawned at that time, and she is clearly not a monster based on a normal animal or plant in any way. When I learned that she was likely to be a strong monster from the second strata, I was extremely excited to see what she would be capable of in the future after evolving a few times. She's surely going to be mighty. About the third strata, the queen couldn't tell me much at all, not even how deep it is. All she could say was that it is called the Lair of Demons, and in this area of the world nobody knows much about it. In older, more established and powerful empires they are able to delve that far, but the queen claimed to have never met anyone who had been there. I'd be interested to hear what Formo had to say if I can ever get in touch with the Sophos again. Surely those people would have gone super deep in the dungeon. Enough thinking. Time for action. I think I'll upgrade my carapace to +10. Perhaps a bit boring, I get that, but having upgraded my mandibles, the carapace seems to be the next most important choice. With my attack boosted, I next want to buff my defense. Do you wish to upgrade carapace to +10? This will cost 40 biomass. It me. At this level you can choose a mutation advancement. Please select from the menu. Gimme dat menu. Let me see here. Self-healing carapace is nice. Flexi carapace is dumb. Aerodynamic carapace is back, I see. Much like with my mandibles, I'm not after anything too flashy here. My carapace is for defense, to absorb damage and make me an unkillable, unstoppable ant monster. That is all. Let's look at options that directly increase my defense capabilities. The self-healing carapace regenerates itself over time. This could be handy since the diamond carapace is already hard to crack. Any damage caused to it closing itself over would be nice for sure. There are heaps of elemental resistance carapace options, but I reject them out of hand. The element-specific road has been sealed by me long ago. Are there any upgrades to diamond carapace options? Ah! Hardened diamond carapace. Solidifies the carapace and increases resistance to physical damage. Reflective diamond carapace. Can reflect some magical attacks. Dark diamond carapace. Can increase stealth abilities by absorbing light. Man, that sounds rad as heck. But to be honest, the hardened diamond carapace sings to my heart the loudest. A straight-up boost to my defense. I'll take it. While I'm at it, I'll upgrade my eyes to +7. Better vision hasn't let me down in the past. Do you wish to upgrade diamond carapace to +10 and eyes to +7? This will cost 53 biomass. Here as comes. It me. Oh god. Back to floor I go. Eyes has always been extremely bad in the itch department. Your actual eyeballs changing size is a special sort of unpleasant, but combined with the carapace, which obviously extends over my whole body, this is torture. Torture, I say, Gandalf. Gah. I wriggle on the floor for another 5 minutes whilst my pets sit idly on the side. At least Chrysalis can't see me. Vibrant is actually reaching out with her antennae to poke me every now and again. How rude. Finally it fades and my biomass spend for the time being is over. Chapter 172 Core, what is it good for? As I start to move over to the collection of cores in Tiny's hands, I notice something sending a shiny reflection onto the walls of the chamber. What the heck is that? It's looking like a mini disco ball descended in the room. I almost turn my head to see if there is anything suspended from the roof before remembering I don't have to turn my head to look up anymore. It's only then that I realize the reflection is actually coming from me. More specifically from my carapace. What the heck is going on? On closer inspection of my usually smooth and glittering diamond carapace, I noticed that something has changed in my last mutation. When I selected hardened diamond carapace, I hadn't quite expected this sort of effect. The small glittering points in my carapace have expanded, growing out over the surface of the carapace slightly. Each little point has only grown a small amount, but the cumulative effect is significant. In essence, I now have a small diamond covering at points all over my carapace. I mean, I look fabulous, but just how high is the value of my skeleton going to get if I keep going down this path? If I continue to harden the diamond carapace, in future will I eventually just be completely covered in diamond, a shiny and reflective crystalline? That sounds awesome. I might end up with monster hunters from all over the globe coming to take my extremely valuable business district back to the surface, but damn if I won't look good doing it. Enough, I can worry about this another time, for now I need to focus on the process of evolving. As Vibrant bounces around the room making a pest of herself and my pets patiently wait, I start to focus my mind and activate my engineering skill, one core at a time. After exhausting my will on one core, I rest for 5 minutes before moving on to the next. Truly, this is some of the most draining mental exertion I can imagine. How the Sophos are able to work on a single core for weeks on end, I have no idea. I can barely last more than 10 minutes on one before my mental energy is flatlining. While I'm at it, I do make sure to try and focus on practicing finer changes rather than brute forcing larger shifts in stats. Maybe taking a leg from here and moving it to there, making the mouth wider, general changes to the monster's physical shape rather than just its statistics. This kind of editing takes even more mental energy, but I must have experience in this field if my grand project is going to be a reality. I make sure that I'm not messing with any potentially interesting or powerful cores before I begin my editing process. It wouldn't do to overwrite a potentially promising pet with some garbage after I've put an extra pair of legs on its head. After several hours, I've created a small pile of cores that are ready for consumption. I take a quick break since the next part is even harder. Stretch it out, Anthony. Just enjoy the breeze and concentrate, man. Who's the worker? You the worker. Okay. Let's do this. After flexing and stretching my ant self out in truly strange and puzzling ways, I am sufficiently mentally psyched for the upcoming challenge. Approaching two small cores on the floor with the utmost seriousness, I tap each one with a single antennae and then press together both physically and mentally. HRNNNNGGGG. Like pressing two rocks together, the cores refuse to budge. To make the impossible possible, a sheer dominant force of will is required, and I strain with every ounce of my being. Come on, you little bugger. Get in there. Gradually, the two cores begin to blur together, melding and blending their energies in wild and chaotic ways. Actually being able to control the result of this fusion is still a dream within a dream for me. Successfully merging the cores is still the best I can do. Hold on, Anthony. You have the power. I grit my mandibles tightly as I press with my mind forcefully against the cores until the fusion is finally complete. Phew. Holy moly. That's hard. Okay, that's one. Damn it. After a rest, I throw myself back into the fusion until I finally get the notification. Compatible special core detected. Do you want to absorb or reconstitute the monster? Finally. I'm a broken heap of an ant on the floor, but the core is finally finished. Vibrant. I call. Hi. She answers, bouncing into view energetically. Hanging around while I grind away on skills is mind-numbingly boring for the little ant, and she's been poking about and literally running up the walls. Chrysalis is the one to suffer the most as the small worker pokes her, rolls her around, and gets the little ball to climb onto her back before they go out adventuring. She seems absolutely delighted to be called upon. Despite being so tired, a feeling of selfish glee is washing over me. Yes, be happy whilst you can, little worker. Once this is done, you'll be big enough to no longer hitch free rides on me and strong enough to fight for your own food. My days of freedom will return. Muhahaha. Now you've reached maximum level, right? Yup. And your core is maxed out, right? Yup. Excellent. After absorbing this core, you'll be ready to evolve into an especially powerful ant. The little worker practically vibrates with enthusiasm. Really? She cries. Absolutely. The only problem is that it's going to hurt like hell. I cheer. Okay. She bubbles with barely diminished enthusiasm. There really isn't anything that will keep her down for long. Skittering closer, she reaches out to the core and begins the absorption process. Much like when it was Tiny's turn, she becomes increasingly agitated as the process continues, the powerful energy within the core streaming into her body, reinforcing her core and infusing it with the potent energies that will supercharge her evolution. Almost unconsciously, I reach out with an antenna to stroke the suffering little worker and pat her on the head, trying to soothe her. Perhaps she notices, or perhaps she gets a better handle on the feeling, but she visibly relaxes under my ministrations. I don't really want them to suffer, okay? This is what's best for them. With more powerful evolutions, they'll be able to overcome their fate and carve out their own path in life. As a proud parent, this is the best I can do. Sniff. Finally, the process is done and Vibrant collapses in relief. You can evolve now, little one, I say gently. She nods, exhausted, and crawls over to a corner of the chamber where she seems to fall asleep. I'll be interested to watch her evolution happen. What changes will she undergo? Tiny watches her go with an odd look on his face. That's right, buddy, you're next. Chapter 173. Well-behaved ape. Tiny's bat face starts to exude more and more anxiety as I watch him intently. Tiny. What? Time to max out that core, champ. Get over here. With reluctance painted over every inch of his body, Tiny lumbers to his feet and then resentfully ambles his way towards me from where he had slumped himself against the wall as I worked. Using an antenna, I flick one core at his feet and then stare at him. He stares back. Slowly I reach down to pick up the core with my mandibles and something flashes within the ape's eyes. Was it understanding? Wisdom? Or was it heart-rending fear? I shall never know. What I do know is that Tiny reaches down and snatches up the core before I can grasp it in my jaws. A moment later he shows me the empty palm in which the core had been held. Good boy. He needs to make sure he eats all his food. With flicks of my antenna I continue to roll him cores I've modified until I run out and have to craft a few more. Every now and again I make sure to check in on Vibrant as she undergoes evolution. I kind of expect to see flashing lights or a glow or something, but evolution doesn't seem to work like that here. At least nothing is happening so far. The little worker is still lying flat, seemingly unconscious, without any physical changes taking place. Core engineering has reached level 5. Nice. Every little bit of help I can get makes a difference. I continue grinding my way through the cores, but I have to take frequent and longer breaks in order to maintain the effort. It won't be long until I can't continue anymore and will need to take a break to rest. This is massively draining work. After consuming more cores, Tiny finally raises his hand and pushes the last core back to me, indicating that he is full. Finally. I'm wrecked. My head is pounding with serious pain. I'll have to take a nap before trying to form the special core. Tiny will have a minor reprieve. Take a nap, big guy. We'll finish it tomorrow and then you can evolve. Tiny nods happily, clearly pleased at this turn of events. Ungrateful. No appreciation for how hard I'm working. I scuttle wearily over to check on Vibrant and see if there have been any major changes during her evolution. Still nothing. Maybe she's still fiddling around in the menus. I can't be sure. Certainly the first time I evolved I have no idea how much time passed as I fiddled about with the options and scrolled through the lists of options, which are certainly extremely wide. I guess this could be taken as confirmation that Vibrant is intelligent enough to trigger the manual evolution. Something Tiny will possibly never reach. Grumbling internally about my lovable ape's dim-witted ways, I slowly drift into torpor. Manamina. I'm up. Springing awake I flash into action, immediately moving to check on Vibrant. Antennae wiggling this way and that I eagerly check to see if there have been any developments whilst I was resting. What's she got? Wings. Extra head. Doubled in size. Tripled in size. Nothing. Resting on the ground, still perfectly still for possibly the first time in her life, Vibrant continues to appear to be resting peacefully. Why is nothing happening? She should be getting larger if nothing else. If she wakes up the same size as before, I'm going to be super annoyed. I shuffle over to my barely dented pile of cores. I literally emptied out the treasury of a kingdom to amass these cores. A small kingdom without a whole lot of wealth, but still. This is going to take us a long way. If my plans come together, then this pile of cores could change the world. That's enough daydreaming, back to work. Time to fuse these cores. Get pumped. I spend 5 minutes mentally hyping myself like a weightlifter about to perform the gold medal lift at the Olympics. When the correct mindset has been achieved, I begin the arduous task of core fusion. HRNNNGG. A while later, once again exhausted and shaking mentally, I pick up the intensely sparkling and oversized core in my mandibles and carry it to the sleeping Tiny. Get up, you slug. Prodding him viciously with my legs, I shout at him repeatedly, but to no effect. He doesn't want to get up. I suspect he knows what may be coming and is trying to avoid it as long as possible. Perhaps this is a sign of him developing a little wisdom, trying to lay this cunning plan. Unfortunately, I don't think it will have the result he was hoping for. Does he really think I'm just going to give up and walk away after breaking my mind in half trying to make this core for him? Instead, I carefully grasp the precious core in mandibles and climb up onto the wall above the slumbering ape. Then I raise the core high. Wake. Bam. Up. Bam. 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 I slam the core down on his head savagely. To be honest, after the first 2 hits he clearly started moving and raising his hands to protect his head. The rest of the hits were simply my display of affection. This is a teaching moment for Tiny and I don't intend to waste this opportunity. I spoil him if anything. Rubbing his head and giving me a resentful look that I completely ignore as I climb down off the wall and drop the special core in front of him. Perhaps lured by the potent core that will increase his evolutionary potential and strength, or maybe it's the death stare I'm giving him, but Tiny finally reaches forward and touches the core lightly, kicking off the absorption. During the entire process I watch him like a hawk, lest he decide halfway through to bail out on me. I'm not sure what I expect, that he'll suddenly fling the core in my face and leap out of the nest, screaming freedom. But nothing of the sort occurs. His face twists painfully as the core dramatically increases the pressure inside him, but he stoically perseveres to the end. He'd better. A newborn little worker was able to handle it. It'd be ridiculous if he couldn't manage it himself. Eventually the core vanishes and Tiny has fully reinforced his core, ready to advance with a new, special evolution. Well done, Tiny. Go and evolve. You'll wake up stronger than ever before. The ape nods tiredly and slumps against the wall, quickly closing his eyes and appearing to drift off. As my first pet, I'm very attached to Tiny. I know he wants to battle and eat until he's satisfied, without evolving in the best possible way each time. I just don't think he'd have the strength to keep doing it. Strong as he is, he's a monster from the first and weakest of the layers in the dungeon. If we face monsters from the depths, just how well would he hold up? By doing this over and over again, I hope to change his destiny. Chapter 174 Options Abound. I have to say I'm quite excited to finally be able to evolve again. I know I should wait and pile on the biomass, but I simply can't contain my excitement. So I'm weak. Sue me. Everyone has to have a weakness, and perhaps this is mine. Rather than shoveling my face full of monsters sticky insides, as delightful as that sounds, I would rather be taking a brief nap and then waking up a whole new being. It involves the consumption of less guts, for one thing. I can't help but get excited for the possible options that may be present to me when I evolve. The mind ant species has been good to me, dramatically increasing my strength and propelling me further along the path of magic. As great as it's been, I feel like I need one more push in order to achieve a proper mastery of magic. If I have an option that will further enhance my mind, I'll be hard-pressed to turn it down. Before any of that though, I have to form the special core. Let's do this. God Almighty. My brain. Core engineering has reached level 6. Worth. After all of my effort, I'm finally done. In front of me sits a new shiny special core, the announcement from Gandalf still ringing in my ears. Compatible special core detected. Yes. This mental torture is finally over. Despite being as mentally fatigued as I am, I eagerly begin the absorption process immediately. Not even a microsecond passes before the truly uncomfortable squeezing feeling erupts in my guts. Nope. I remember this feeling. It sucks. As if my intestine were slowly swelling with gas, but there was nowhere for it to go. The tightness swells until it turns into pain. Then it swells some more and turns into even more pain. Each. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to do this immediately after wearing myself down, grinding my own brain against the stone to produce these cores. But it's too late to complain about it now. I'll just have to push through and endure. Grit those mandibles, Anthony. Show what an ant you are. Do the workers complain? No. Will you complain? Only sometimes. Every second only intensified the pain, so I try and distract myself in any way possible. The first thing I try to do is look around the room for something to catch my eye, but everyone in the room is sleeping or something like it. Tiny is openly snoring in front of me. I'm not even sure if he's evolving or decided to take a nap first. Vibrant is still posed, perfectly still, on the floor in the corner, still nothing going on there. Chrysalis is bobbling in the middle of the room on the floor. I'm not sure exactly when she wobbled over there, but I may as well pick her up again. Chrysalis, over here, I stutter, mental teeth still clenched against the pain. I extend a leg out and Chrysalis latches on with a few tentacles, swiftly making her own way onto my back, where she wibbles a bit and settles into a seemingly comfortable nook between my body segments. Any idea how close you are to reaching fully grown? I ask, desperate for distractions. Nothing. Perhaps if I wasn't stuck with the least talkative of my gang, this might have gone better. You know, Chrysalis, I would be really grateful if you would talk to me a little at the moment, I encourage her. I don't know, Master, she answers quietly. I sense that she's a little disappointed that she isn't useful yet. I'm completely not fussed, however. I was lugging Tiny around for ages before he was able to be useful. In many ways he still isn't useful. Not to worry, Chrysalis. It won't be long and you'll be back to shredding monsters, you'll see. I can still vividly remember the sight of her mature form ripping monsters apart and eating them whole. I don't think I'll ever forget it, actually. I hope so, Master, she replies. There now. It's nice to hear you talking a bit, little one. You don't have to be so quiet, you know. I urge her. Well, maybe work on it in future. I'll be evolving soon, Chrysalis, so don't worry if there isn't any movement for a bit or I don't respond when you try to talk to me, not that it's likely. You'll be evolving, Master? The little blob asks. Yup. Looking forward to it. Everyone else is evolving at the moment. Tiny and Vibrant have already started. I'll be last. Oh. She sounds a bit deflated. I promise you, Chrysalis, soon as you're ready we'll get you in the dungeon, and once you're grown, getting you to evolve will be our priority. Not to worry, I have big plans for you. Thank you, Master, she replies, sounding a little happier. Who would, though a tentacled blob of death would be this sensitive? It's nice though, so much more respectful than the other two. Damn, it hurts. Finally the core has finished being absorbed and my time has come. The season of triumph. I can't help but have a good feeling about this evolution. The mind ant was the first steps on a brand new path of evolution, and the next step will only be more potent. I can feel it already. Damn it, I can't handle this anymore. Feels like my core is cracking. Okay then, Chrysalis, I'm going in. Okay, Master. Enjoy. Just so polite. You have reached maximum level for your current level of evolution. Would you like to use the evolution menu? Yes. My mind immediately is swept into the menu, and glittering before me are the new options for my next form. Let's see. Mind Worker, for Micah. This evolution includes a +10 bonus to might and a +5 bonus to cunning. Aura glands related to worker cooperation are discounted for this evolution. Okay, the first option. A normal evolution that gives some bonus stats, and what's this? A discount on aura glands. HMMMMMM. Interesting. I looked through the aura glands and there are a whole lot that relate to increased coordination or work speed for particular types of allies. Presumably this option will discount these. It's also worth noting that the stat bonuses are quite considerable this time. +15 in total. And +5 to cunning. I needed a special evolution to get that last time. This only makes me more eager to see what the special evolutions will give. Advanced Soldier, for Micah. This evolution includes a +10 bonus to might and a +10 bonus to toughness. 1 free health-related organ. Defensive carapace upgrades are discounted. Okay. Dispensing with the mind ant path, this normal evolution puts me back on the soldier track, skipping over basic and straight to advanced. The bonuses here are truly juicy, +20 stats. Admittedly they are the cheapest stats in terms of energy, but still. A free health-related organ. That could refer to a number that I've seen. Perhaps there are also new options that relate to HP in some way. Maybe something that increases total HP or redundant organs like a second heart. Curious. Ooh, the next option is a special evolution. Special evolution, Magic Soldier +15 bonus to might, +10 bonus to toughness, +5 bonus to cunning. 1 free health-related organ, defensive carapace upgrades are discounted. Wowzers. Look at those stat bonuses. Clearly this path is to enable a turn to a more fighty-oriented build but still wants to advance magical capacity slightly. I tell you what, that is fair tempting, I have to say. If I was satisfied with my magic progress at the point, I'd be even more swayed by this. The huge jump in stats alone is tempting. Special evolution, and Sage +10 bonus to cunning, +5 bonus to willpower. 1 free magic affinity gland and an energy conversion gland. You what? Another free magic affinity gland plus an energy conversion gland. I can well imagine what that gland is for too. It'll be for increasing the transformation rate of energy from normal MP to specialized MP inside the glands. This is juicy. This is double juicy. What a massive increase in magical prowess. This might be enough to push me over the top into complete mage skills. I'm salivating, holy moly. The next option will have to be freaking good to compete with this. Special evolution, Dispersed Mind Ant +10 bonus to cunning, +10 bonus to willpower. This evolution includes a free coordination cortex and a free sub-brain. Chapter 175 Exceed Mortal Kind. Dispersed Mind Ant. +20 to mental stats and a free sub-brain. The sub-brain is probably another 5 cunning worth of brain matter on its own. With this level of mental boost, the things I've been hoping to achieve, mana transformation, working on the cores, all of these could be realized in one fell swoop. Not to mention this. Coordination Cortex. I'm intrigued by the possibilities of this name. What is exactly will this new organ do? The only two options I'm looking at are Ant Sage or Dispersed Mind, and these choices will both further enhance my magical and mental strength to the point where I'll be satisfied. These two options will bring my current goals closer. The Ant Sage will allow me to choose another magical affinity gland, and it isn't as if I'm not tempted by this. There are so many options I could choose that would make a real difference to my magical flexibility. I could straight up choose the Mind Magic gland, or take something else crazy like the Space or Time gland. Not to mention the gland that'll increase the efficiency of the mana conversion, making my glands even more effective. Combined with the bottomless gravitational gland, it might be enough to almost have infinite gravitational mana. Or close enough to it. With my huge reserves, if I were to add a faster recovery speed, it would take ages for me to actually run out. I would become a spell-slinging powerhouse. The Dispersed Mind Ant, on the other hand. Those juicy stats, that extra brain. This is power of a different sort. With a mind that strong, with an extra sub-brain on board to help handle the laborious tasks of moving and shaping mana, I'll be able to cast in combat even more effectively. If the brains are strong enough, then maybe they'll enable me to quickly transform mana during a fight. Even if I could only succeed in the more basic transformations like fire and water, it'll dramatically increase my spellcasting options. And the Cortex, I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I can only imagine positive things. Let's see what Gandalf has to say about it. Coordination Cortex. An organ designed to control and coordinate the efforts of multiple sub-brains, increasing their efficiency when handling tasks separately or working together. Oh. This organ is specifically designed to help manage multiple sub-brains. So that means that I won't even have to direct them with own main mind, further freeing it for other things. Perhaps I wouldn't even have unlocked this evolution if I hadn't crafted myself a sub-brain during my last evolution. This is good stuff. Also key here is the will upgrade. Will can be considered the force of the mind, and it has many effects, like making mana easier to move as well as providing defense against mental attacks, something I suspect will become more prevalent the deeper we go into the dungeon. I'm going for it. The Dispersed Mind Ant it is. Having made that selection, I enter the next layer of the evolution menu. My core has more than double the energy of the last evolution to spend, and I'm going to cash in. First, I check in on my two sub-brains, and as I suspected, the new freebie isn't quite as beefy as the one I crafted myself. I decide to spend a chunk of energy building them both up and ensuring they are equally capable. I hit the wall numerous times already with what my sub-brain could handle, so I want it to be a bit more capable. Now that I have the Coordination Cortex, I'll be able to task both brains with a single job, and the Cortex will do the heavy lifting of coordinating the efforts, which means I don't need to make the sub-brains strong enough to handle the big jobs on their own, just good enough so that they can handle it when they work together. I end up with spending most of the free plus 10 cunning on shaping up the sub-brains, with the remainder spent on my own mind. I draw on a little of surplus energy to give my main mind a further boost for a total of plus 13 gained on my cunning. The will increase I similarly spread around my three brains, increasing the capacity of each, and spend a little extra pumping the main brain for a total of plus 12 to will. Just going this far, my mental capacity has received a massive boost. Cunning has gone from 32 to 45 and will from 22 to 34. I still have plenty of energy left. Like a kid in a candy store, I can't help but flick through the options available. There are certainly a ton of new organs and body parts available. I'm tempted by the wings. Really tempted by the wings, but as cool as it would be, I'm not certain it'll be super useful inside the dungeon. Idly, I flick through to try and find an option that'll help me adjust my gender, but there doesn't seem to be that particular item in the list at this point. Maybe next time. I have two ways I can go right now. I could spend the remainder of my energy on buffing my physical stats like I did last time, or I could try and find an affordable organ I can purchase with the remainder of the energy stored in my core. There are so many options. I could get an extra set of legs. Nope. The correct number of legs is clearly 6. 8 would make me an arachnid, and that is simply no go. I don't really need more eyes or anything. I could get a venom gland added to my bite, or I could get a sting in my business zone to inject venom. There are quite a few ants with stingers that I know of, fire ants probably the most common of those. This is due to ants actually being an evolution of the wasp family. I think I'll skip the stinger for now. My back zone is clearly dangerous enough already. The aura glands are still too expensive for me, as tasty as they are. Those will have to wait until further down the line. I think I might take a look at things that might enhance my already potent defense, There has to be some interesting glands or organs that can help me out in this department. For the short-term future I will be using magic as my primary offense. The whole point of choosing this path was achieve that end, so I'm not too concerned about raising my physical offense for the time being. So let's see what we can see. I already have the healing gland that gives me the burst of healing I want, but there are still a ton of other options, such as purchasing secondary hearts and such to increase survivability. Since I'm an invertebrate, with my skeleton on the outside, I don't think the backup organs are that necessary for me. For a soft, spongy creature, those parts are quite vulnerable and may need to be protected, but not me. What I need is something that will increase my outer defense even further. I can purchase a second healing gland, but I'll pass on that. Let's see, there has to be something here. Ah, this looks tasty. Inner carapace plating, designed to support an exoskeleton from within. This additional set of bone plating will increase the flexibility and thickness of a carapace. Muhaha. Nice. Examining the option more closely, it seems less like plating and more like a web of crisscrossing carapace wires underneath my outer skeleton. That's probably why it's cheap enough for me to afford. Rather than use the energy I have remaining on a small stat boost to my physical properties, I spend it modifying my inner plating to add more wires around my head to marginally increase the defensive boost around my precious brain. When it's all said and done, my final status will look like this. Name, Anthony. Level, 1 core. Might, 41. Toughness, 29. Cunning, 44. Will, 35. HP, 50/50ths. MP, 110/110ths. Skills, Excavation level 7. Improved Acid Shot level 6. Advanced Grip level 2. Shattering Bite level 6. Advanced Stealth level 5. Splintering Chomp level 2. Tunnel Map level 3. Mana Transformation level 1. Forceful Mana level 4. External Mana Manipulation level 2. Mana Sensing level 5. Core Engineer level 5. Advanced Exoskeleton Defense level 5. Pet Communication level 2. Dash level 4. Mutations, Focused Eyes +7. Infrared Antennae +5. Restrictive Acid +5. Absorption Legs +5. Infused Mandibles +10. Diamond Carapace +5. Limb Regeneration Gland +5. Pheromone Language Gland +5. Deep Gravity Magic Gland +5. Coordination Cortex. Inner Carapace Plating. Species, Dispersed Mind Ant, Formica. Skill Points, 12. Biomass, 0. Pleased with what I see, I confirm my choices and my mind falls instantly down into a deep void filled with black.